perfectly well that bringing a new application into the fold, yeah, it's never just plug and play. It is navigating a deeply complex web of permissions. So today, we're diving into a process that sits at the absolute heart of modern identity management, bringing those rogue, disconnected target applications under strict enterprise governance using SailPoint.
Think about the sheer chaos of ungoverned access for a second. We're talking about that former employee who somehow still has the keys to your financial records, or active logins just floating around in the ether that belong to absolutely no one. Having zero visibility into who has what permissions creates massive compliance risks just hiding right there in the shadows of your network. And that's exactly the reality when applications sit completely outside your identity governance platform. To fix it, you need a highly structured, repeatable solution. You have to pull that application into the light so SailPoint can actually do its job, managing user accounts, provisioning, and compliance reporting. At its core, this whole mission is about centralization. Honestly, it's the only way you can securely manage access across your entire ecosystem.
To make sense of all this, we've organized this 10-step technical onboarding process into 4 manageable phases: the blueprint, the handshake, access governance, and going live, before wrapping up with the essential tools you'll need. Let's map out this journey from chaos to control.
First up, welcome to application onboarding, moving from chaos to governed access.
Which brings us right into phase 1, the blueprint. This is where we gather our intel and build that initial connection. Okay, so before a single byte of data moves, we have to lay the foundation, right? You need to fully understand the landscape of the target application and establish that initial technical bridge. This blueprint phase makes up the first 3 steps of our life cycle. Step 1 is requirement gathering. This is where you collect the absolute must-haves from the application owner, like the authentication type and compliance needs. Step 2 is connectivity setup, where you physically configure the connector itself. And step 3 is schema discovery. Think of schema discovery as SailPoint learning to speak the application's unique language for accounts, entitlements, and permission models. Now, the sheer variety of ways we can connect to an app is massive. You might be hooking into a JDBC database, pulling from a REST API, linking up to LDAP, Active Directory, SAP, Azure AD, or maybe even using a SIM integration. But regardless of the connector type, the key tasks remain exactly the same. You've got to configure your endpoint, set up those service accounts, lock down your authentication credentials, and then rigorously test that connectivity. No matter the connection, actually scratch that, especially because of the different connections, setting up your service accounts and testing them is absolutely non-negotiable, unless, you enjoy troubleshooting at 2 in the morning. But let's ground all these technical details in actual human reality. During that initial requirement gathering, you absolutely have to define the joiner, mover, leaver, or JML requirements. This is the real day-to-day employee lifecycle. It dictates what actually happens when a human being joins the company, gets a promotion, or leaves for good. It's the entire reason we're gathering this data in the first place. Because at the end of the day, the technology has to serve human operational reality, not the other way around. Moving on to phase 2, the handshake. Time to pull that data and start matching identities.
This is the exact moment where raw application data formally meets your enterprise reality. The handshake covers steps 4 and 5 of our life cycle. First up, we have account aggregation. This basically means running scheduled jobs to pull all those existing application accounts directly into SailPoint. Right after that comes identity correlation, where we take that brand new inventory of accounts and start matching them to actual human beings in the enterprise.
Honestly, this part gets a little bit like a detective story. Because when you run that aggregation to pull in existing accounts, you aren't just taking inventory, you're hunting. Aggregation allows you to detect orphan accounts, those active logins floating around in the system that belong to absolutely no one. Exposing those orphans, that is one of the quickest, most satisfying security wins you're going to get during the whole onboarding process. To actually solve the mystery of who owns what, we rely on identity correlation. This is simply the process of mapping those raw technical application accounts back to your enterprise identities. And you do this by looking for shared attributes. Maybe it's matching up an employee ID, an email address, or even engineering a custom correlation rule to figure out that jsmith01 in some legacy system is in fact John Smith in HR. This contrast really brilliantly illustrates the gap we're bridging. On one side, you have a raw application account, maybe just a cryptic string of numbers or an old username. And on the other, you have the actual human employee. Identity correlation is the linchpin that connects the system ID to the real person. Without it, true holistic governance across your organization is basically impossible.
Next up is Phase 3, Access Governance. These are your rules of engagement. Now that we actually know who everyone is, it's time to lay down the law. We establish the automated rules and access models that are going to keep your system secure and, just as importantly, keep your audit teams extremely happy. We're looking at steps 6, 7, and 8 here. Step 6 is provisioning configuration, where we enable automated actions. Step 7 is access model setup, configuring birthright access, roles, and approval workflows. And Step 8 is certification and compliance, where we set up strict, non-negotiable compliance reviews.
Just think about the sheer amount of manual work you save with Step 6. By configuring provisioning policies and before and after rules, you're empowering SailPoint to automatically create accounts, tweak access when someone changes roles, and immediately disable or delete accounts the exact minute someone leaves. It totally transforms a manual IT burden into a silent, well-oiled, automated machine. Because, let's be honest, absolutely no IT professional wants to spend their Friday afternoon manually executing password resets.
Here's the real kicker, though. Step 8, setting up your compliance controls, is literally what keeps your company out of the news headlines. By automating manager certifications, application owner reviews, and audit controls, you are locking down your environment. And this is especially crucial for segregation of duties, or SOD. Automating SOD ensures that the person who can write a check isn't the same person who can approve it. That right there is how you prevent toxic risk.
Which brings us to the final stretch. Phase 4, going live, testing and deployment.
We've built the blueprint, we've made the handshake, we've set the rules. Now, we cross the finish line with Step 9, testing. And we're talking about rigorous scenario-based evaluations here. You absolutely cannot skip this. Once the testing proves your configuration is rock solid, we finally move to Step 10, production deployment. This is where we push our carefully crafted setup into the live environment.
Tying this right back to our joiner, mover, leaver narrative, your test scenarios have to cover every single life event. You have to meticulously validate joiner provisioning. You've got to ensure access requests and approvals route correctly. You must test access removal, verify termination and deprovisioning, and yes, even run test certification campaigns. Every single phase of the human lifecycle has to be technically proven before you hit that go live button.
And look, deployment isn't just flipping a switch and walking away. Moving to production means you have to schedule ongoing aggregations and enable live certifications. You have to continually monitor for provisioning failures. Because an automated system is great right up until an API token expires and nobody notices. Crucially, you have to establish long-term operational support so the system stays healthy day after day.
Finally, let's look at the essential tools for success, the skills and deliverables you'll need.
Pulling this whole process off, it requires a pretty specialized toolkit. You aren't just an admin here. You are blending high-level architecture with some deep technical coding. You need to confidently navigate Java and Bean Shell rules. You have to master REST and SOAP API integrations, write database queries with SQL and JDBC, maintain a rock-solid grasp of LDAP and Active Directory, and of course, possess a keen eye for workflow design and access governance concepts.
And the ultimate proof that you've done all this correctly? That lies entirely in your deliverables. Because a successful onboarding is, above all, a documented one. You need your application onboarding document, a finalized connector configuration, documented correlation logic, mapped provisioning workflows, and comprehensive test cases. But the absolute holy grail here is the complete runbook, the ultimate survival guide for the operational team taking over your beautifully integrated app.
So, having walked through that 10-step journey, from gathering those initial requirements all the way to a full production deployment, it leaves us with one pretty critical question to consider. Look at your own infrastructure right now. Look at your isolated systems and your current processes. Is your next application truly ready for SailPoint? Take these phases, apply them to your environment, and start bringing that chaos under control. Thanks so much for joining me on